and welcome to this London Embroidery School Stitchalong. Today I'm going to be working on our brand new kit, which is the Snowflake Christmas decoration kit. I probably should introduce myself. I'm Natasha from the London Embroidery School, and I develop a lot of classes and kits for the London Embroidery School. So I'm really excited to be bringing you this new kit today. Now, I did not actually design this one myself. This was done by one of my wonderful colleagues, but I'm really pleased to be able to bring it to you today and to just give you a little flavour of what goes on in one of these kits. It is a goldwork based kit, and so it just allows you to have a little bit of a go at what can sometimes be considered a bit of an intimidating technique to just try. Now, I always think this is a little bit because, well, it's gold. Gold is in the title, and so people often think that it's a little bit above them in terms of technique and their skill level. However, this kit is really going to show you just how simple and fun goldwork can be. So, I'm just going to start by tacking the front patch onto my base fabric. The kit includes lots of things that you would need in order to have a go at the class itself. And so you've got the front patch here. You've also got a back patch. So this means that when we're done with the embroidery, you can literally just stick the back patch over the top of the embroidery that you've done, or the back of the embroidery at least. That's going to tidy all of that up in one go, and then you are ready to kind of just add the ribbon and hang it on your tree. This material that you can see I'm working into at the moment is going to be cut to shape on the back so that we won't have any excess, and therefore the back piece, which looks a little bit like so and comes with its own sticky, will then be sandwiched onto the back of the embroidery and everything is finished. So what else is in the kit? Well, it comes with your front and back patches. You've got your thread, you've got your needle, the bullion. So that's the gold bit that we will be adding in this stitch along today, and the ribbon to finish it off with. And it's a really nice little glittery ribbon, so it really sort of complements what we've got going on here. And you get a packet of the gold good stuff. Now this bullion is bright check. Bright check is, well, colloquially known as the glittery one, because it has this wonderful twisted quality to it that gives it a really glittery effect when it's laid. So it's great for anything that you want to add some glitz and glamour to. I've very simply just gone around and tacked this patch into place now, and I'm just gonna end off my thread there, and we're gonna need some fresh. So I'm going to take a new piece of thread that is fingertip to elbow in length. In addition to the kit, there are a couple of items that you would need in order to take part in the kit and complete the project. So you will need an embroidery hoop, and you can see that I'm working into an embroidery hoop today. I have got a table clamp hoop, which is a reasonably large one, as you can probably see. But this is just going to allow me to work with both hands, number one, and, chat to you guys whilst I do it, which is rather helpful for me, at least. In addition to that, you will also need some snips. Now, some people like to have 1 or 2 pairs of snips when they're working on goldwork. And this is simply so they can make sure that they're not going to be blunting their good scissors with by cutting the metal, because the metal obviously is quite harsh. So I like to have a pair of goldwork scissors that aren't particularly precious. I'm not too precious about them at all. And then I have my pair of scissors that I'm happy to cut threads with. Now you can of course cut threads with your goldwork scissors too, but you might find that they become, less and less effective on thread as time goes on and you've used them on more and more goldwork bullion. So in the interests of good habits, I suggest that you start by having the two pairs and keeping them to their intended uses. I'm now just going to take some of my bright check. Now with this, we just want to lay this down on top of each of the little fronds of the snowflake that we have. So I'm just looking to lay it on top for the moment and see how long I want one of them to be, and keep that to one side. And if I'm happy with that, then I'll probably make sure that I've got a few of each length, so I can just come back to this stock of pre-prepared bullion and really get into my stitching when I get to that point. So that's like the longer length one. We've also got a shorter length little frond. That's about that length. You will notice that I am cutting my pearls onto what is called a bullion board or a velvet board, and you can see that that just helps to hold the bullion or the cut pieces of pearl in place whilst I'm cutting them. Because it is wrapped wire, is what the bullion is made of, it's quite springy, and you might find that it sort of ends up, as you try and cut it, flying around the room. Number one, you don't want to waste your bullion because, as embroidery materials go, it's not the cheapest, as the name would suggest. But also, it's just annoying trying to chase down all these little bits of bullion around your room. Nobody needs that. You just want to relax into your stitching, and I find that a bullion board really helps with that. Okay, let's start with those few little pieces that are pre-cut now. I just anchored my thread somewhere subtle into the patch so that I've got somewhere to stitch from. And we're just bringing the piece of pearl onto the thread, laying that flat against the fabric, and then dropping the stitch down to lay that into place. Right, let's do another one, shall we? So let's do its pair. In the interest of pairing, because I came up on the inside of that piece of pearl, I'm going to come up on the inside of its reflection too. Slide that down the thread and pop the needle down on the far side. Right, moving down a rung, I'm going to need some of the longer length pieces that I cut. Bringing that onto the needle and sliding that down. You can see that that fits that little frond that bit better than this short one would have. And laying that down, and pretty much immediately you can see just how much more glitz and sparkle the addition of the pearl brings to our little patches. This style of stitching is roughly based on a traditional technique known as chipping, which is all about trying to add as much sparkle to an area through goldwork as possible. And so it involves you cutting your usually bright check down to really small pieces or chips, and then stitching them in all different directions so that they catch the light as much as is possible. We're doing this in quite a controlled manner, if you like, today, by following the pre-embroidered design on our patch, but you could apply the technique for future, once you've mastered it in this kit, to all sorts of techniques. And it's really wonderful as a way to fill an area with lots and lots of interest. Now, I've just noticed I have not cut anything for this really tiny little piece here, so I'm going to need an even smaller piece of chipping. Let's have a few of those. So now you know all about what I'm working on today. What are you guys working on? Have you got a project on the go at the moment, or are you just sort of scouting out what you might like to do as, say, a Christmas project? I always like to set myself a little project for over the Christmas period. As you know, like quite a lot of people have extra time off and that sort of thing, and so there tends to be a fair bit of time just sort of at home once you've eaten too much and sitting down in front of the TV and that sort of thing. I quite like to have a little something to do with my hands. And so something like this is really great, but perhaps you already have a project in mind, and if you'd like to share that, please do think about popping something into the comments below. I'm always interested to hear from you guys what you're up to and how you're getting along. We've been so excited to bring you these new designs this year. We've been working towards Christmas literally all year, which I'm sure anyone else who works for, or works in the kind of creative arts or anything like that, or any small businesses, working towards Christmas is always such a big deal. But this year we've really been excited to bring you quite a few new products, and this is one that we were really like, I think they're going to love it. And so far, it would seem that you guys have really been loving it. From the reaction on the website, it's been wonderful. So thank you very much to anyone who has bought one of these already. And if you're watching this thinking about whether you could do it, I would say absolutely you can. You can see just how simple it is to create such a pretty effect. Equally, I think it's very achievable if you're looking to buy this for somebody else who, has done a little bit of sewing, but you're not sure if they've done any gold work before or not. That's quite a niche question. Fortunately enough, niche is our answer. It's what we do. So, I would say that if they've done even a little bit of sewing before, they could definitely create something really beautiful with this. And whilst I am working on this, you can see how quickly it starts to develop. I mean, we're already sort of one frond down. So if you're just looking to sort of dip your toe and see if gold work is for you, then this is a really good way to do that. Now that one has just sheared, so I'm going to take that back out because that's no good. In addition to the Snowflake kit, which we are bringing you here, we have another new product coming this Friday publicly, and that's going to, well, you may have already seen some hints of it, those of you that are regular watchers and are on our Instagram or YouTube or anything like that. You might have seen in our reels, it is a Stitch a Day advent calendar bauble. And so each day there is a little tree to stitch, and that's going to make it into a Christmas bauble at the end. So it comes as a pattern. Let me show you that one. So that looks a little bit like so. And you can see you do a tree each day, and then it builds into the bauble, which you stuff at the end, and you can pop it onto your tree and see your progress. So this is really wonderful for are absolute beginners. If you're looking to learn embroidery, it is also just a PDF, so you can do it at your leisure and work on it when it suits you, and come back and repeat whatever you need to. It also means that, like with this kit, it's time that you can spend away from screens. And I think that we're all coming to realise just how important that is. And so for more complicated things, I think it's great to have a full, say, video to follow and to really see someone doing it. But for these more simple kits and projects, I really think that using it as time away from screens, where you can, set some time aside to just be in your own head and do something with your hands, is really super useful for all of us. Now, the Tree a Day Advent Bauble is a really good opportunity to set yourself up with a good new habit for the new year. Because it's a daily thing to do, hopefully by the time you've completed all 24 of the trees and then made it into the bauble, you should be getting into a habit of doing a little bit of stitching each day. And much like with this kit, you're not confined to how you stitch each one. See, this is one way you could interpret this particular artwork, but you don't have to do it exactly like this. If you have some of your own ideas about how you'd like to go about completing the design, then there's no reason why you can't, let your imagination run free and interpret it in your own way. It's something we'd really love to see from you guys, is how you go on to interpret the piece, what you do with it, how you made it your own. If you've taken any of our previous classes, then you, I'm sure, will have heard me say before how we love to see how you go on to use the techniques that you have learnt from us, and what you go on to use them in your own practice and skills and projects. Do you use them for clothing or interiors outcomes? What are you working on it for? Or is it just the pure enjoyment of it, which is hugely valid in itself? You'll notice that I only cut a few chips at a time, and it's simply so if I, did accidentally hit my bullion board or anything like that, I'm not going to lose all of the whole project's worth of chips basically around my rim. And because they're so springy, that is quite a risk at times. Now, I'm thinking that I probably am going to want a new piece of thread soon. It's important that, generally speaking, you don't try and use a thread down too far. The tension starts to get a little bit sketchy, and it just generally doesn't bring what it needs to as a whole to your stitching. So change out your thread as you need to, and your stitching will be much more comfortable overall. Okay. So I'm just going to finish off this thread really quick and then start a new one. Now, I probably should have a little look at the comments because I've not been paying very close attention to them. So if you have asked any questions that I've missed and I don't answer them in the course of the stitch along, please do feel free to pop us a direct message. I will be looking at those after the stream ends. And if I miss you, it wasn't on purpose by any means. It was just that I was looking at my stitching, unsurprisingly, rather than at the comments. But let's have a quick scroll through, make sure we haven't missed anything important. Thank you to all of you who are commenting and are just joining us today. It's really lovely to have so many of you with us. So I've got VixH25 says, so this was in answer to what projects you have going on at the moment. I have the stars to start with, and it will be my very first goldwork piece. Well, best of luck with it. You have chosen a really beautiful one to get started with, and I'm sure you're going to really enjoy that star. Do get started with it, I'd say sooner rather than later. The stars for the tree toppers, that is, are a fair bit larger than these little ones. So, and I always think with embroidery, it always takes longer than you think it's going to. Now, that doesn't mean that that sounds like a bad thing, but it's actually not. I think particularly when you're embroidering for a hobby and just for the pure enjoyment of it, that the longer it lasts, the better, really. And having something fun and pretty to do with your hands has just so many benefits for all of us, to take a few minutes and to be a little bit chilled and have something beautiful come out of it at the end. Caddy 1, I'm doing your coral beaded class. Another lovely choice. Not particularly Christmassy, but we aren't actually there yet, so that is a lovely class to be working on already. That's one of my personal favourites. I'm really pleased with how that class came out, and I don't know whether you can just about see, but in the background there, that's my coral beaded sample. Another class where there's just like loads and loads of techniques for you to learn, and so much to take away and take forward into your own work with that. It'd be really interesting to see what you do with the techniques, and which techniques out of those that are included in the class you choose to take forward, because I think there's more than 20 included in that class, so you're sure to have some favourites, I'm certain, and it will be interesting to see which ones tickle your fancy the most. Okie doke, so this is coming along nicely. Now, I will also tell you, as you guys are here, that this snowflake is going to be getting a little friend. This snowflake is already out, but Friday week, so that's the 18th, we will have another little kit to go along with this one, which is going to be this little silver star. I just think they make such a sweet set, the pair of them. So I'd say the star is probably a little bit more challenging still, because it's more for a cut work outcome, with the different lengths, making sure that you get the lengths right, and adding this pearl edge to it as well. I should explain that, so the bright check that we're working on today, also known as the glittery one, has this, wonderful sort of glittery finish to it. That's just one type of pearl that is available for use in gold work. In addition to that, you also have smooth pearl and rough pearl. So, like this one here, this is the smooth pearl. You can see it's got a really shiny finish to it. By contrast, you also have rough pearl, and it looks very similar. It's hard to get it across on screen, but this doesn't have a shiny finish to it. It's got quite a matte finish. Now, all of these that I've mentioned so far are all quite soft pearls, and they're made from a soft wire that is wrapped around a cylinder to make a spiral. And then with Bright Check, the spiral just happens not to be round, it happens to be triangular, so you get a more glittery finish to it, versus the smooth pearl and the rough pearl, which are both wrapped around the cylinder, so they are smooth and have kind of the finish of when they're cut like a bugle bead, but made of metal, and that you can cut to length. In addition to the soft pearls, there are also hard wires that are used. So that's things like pearl, which is what we have on the outside of the star. And that's this wire here that's got a really well-defined sort of pearl-like look to it. It's supposed to look like a little line of pearls. I think I need a couple more pieces of bullion. So each time when I'm cutting the bullion, you make sure that you've still got at least one of each length so that you can use them as a master to cut against to make sure that your pearls are all uniform. If you are looking to perhaps get one of our star kits as well, they go out first of all to our VIPs. Now anyone can become a VIP by joining our mailing list. You will find that at the bottom of the homepage of our website, and that will give you early access to all and any of our classes and kits. So you get in to see what we're releasing next at least 24 hours before the general public. So that means for those on the mailing list, they will be able to access the Christmas tree bauble from Thursday and the star kits from Thursday week, in the 17th, I want to say. As well as other little perks and exclusive offers that we like to share to our VIPs. So yeah, do head to the bottom of the homepage and pop your email address in down the bottom there. We try not to email you too often. We try not to be irritating about it, but we do like to let you know what we've got coming up and what we think you should be excited about. I can see I've got a couple more comments here, so I'm just going to have a quick look through those. So Sylvia Parkinson says, are the different pearls available to purchase individually? Yes, absolutely. So on our website, we have the specialist equipment and materials section. And in the specialist materials section, you can just purchase pearls as you would like them. So, I mean, obviously I'm working with gold bright check, but we actually do bright check in a whole array of wonderful colours. So if you're just looking to start a project of your own and you need some materials, we can definitely help you with that. Caddy Williams 1, do the gold wires have actual gold in them? Yes, a small amount. Obviously they do need to be or hold up to a little bit of work and the oil on your hands and that sort of thing. So they do have a small amount of gold in them, gold plate. Hence why, you know, I think they are a little bit more of an expensive material to use. However, I do think that for the effect that you can create with them, they are absolutely worth it. The last big class that we released was in fact an intermediate goldwork class, because I'm really passionate about how goldwork can be used and its history, but also where we could go with it. I think there's a lot of scope to do some really exciting contemporary things with goldwork. There's lots of evidence of its uses historically and the traditional way of doing things, but I always think it's wonderful to learn the techniques, and then once you know them and you know the rules that you're supposed to follow, you can then sort of bend it to your will a little bit and let your hair down with it, enjoy what you think is interesting about it, and just sort of follow your nose. And that's really what the intermediate goldwork class is about, which is a jungle design. So as you can probably guess if you haven't seen it, there's lots of different elements going on in it. It's really good fun. Do check it out if you haven't done so. Because if you do fancy trying something like that, but you're not sure if that is for you, then this sort of project is a really good start to work out if this is something you are genuinely interested in, and whether you would find, you know, going through a beginner's and then hopefully to an intermediate kit would be worthwhile for you. Different horses for different courses, as they say. So, I think we're doing okay for time. I think I've been chatting away to you guys probably about half an hour now. I'm a little over halfway through the design. So that is standing us in pretty good stead because I'm almost certain that I need to be done within the hour. Otherwise, Instagram will cut me off. So we better keep up the pace. We are thinking about obviously what we want to bring you guys next year. And so whilst I have your attention, if there is anything that you can think of that you would really love to learn that we don't currently cover and you think that we should, do let us know. We're always interested to hear from you guys what you're looking for, what your embroidery needs are. And if you can tell us, we can quite possibly make it happen. So, anything in mind, if you're happy to share, please do. Either pop, a comment below. I will be having a little bit of a look through those towards the end, making sure I haven't missed anything, or a direct message, or literally get in touch with us any way you fancy. I've got a little bit of a knot there, so I'm just gonna undo that one and fix it. There we go. Let's just scoot that out. So Boboshi Atelier asks, what kind of piece is it? So this is going to be a snowflake decoration at the end that you can hang on your Christmas tree, or anywhere you like, really. Doesn't exclusively have to be for Christmas trees. I quite like popping some decorations up my banister as an alternative, because I tend, me personally, not to have a very big tree in my house. But I do like decorations, so I find other places to put them instead. Thank you so much. Boboshi Atelier also mentioned to us that it's beautiful. That's very kind. I'm glad that you like it. Now, let me see. We did also do an Ask Us Anything on our Instagram stories running up to this, and we had a few questions on there. So I think there was one from Designs by Caddy, which was about how bright check is made, which I think I've probably already covered on that front. We also had one on there from Sophie DFC, who asks, what can you do with leftover threads? So obviously it depends what kind of thread you're using, but I tend to think that the first step is to keep a jar of your pieces of short thread that, aren't quite enough to keep as a skein, but, seems a bit wasteful to just chuck away. So if you keep a jam jar or something that's just full of those pieces, then when you find the right sort of project, you can just dip into there. Now, what the right sort of project is will obviously depend on, the things you're interested in and what you're hoping to achieve with it. But I tend to think that things like repair projects are great for using up small bits of materials that you have left over, because they're already a repair in nature. So I think that even if they are a little bit more naive looking at the end for the fact that you maybe use them to recycle materials you already had, that's kind of part of the story. It's part of the charm of having repaired it, is that it is no longer perfect, but it has a story. Something happened to it and it got damaged and then you fixed it. Oh, I'm using the wrong scissors. Oh no, I knew something felt weird. Yes, so, something happens to your item, and presumably if you're interested enough to repair it, it's something that you really love and it's worthwhile to you. And so then when you repair it, I feel like you add to that item's story. You give it a new lease of life, and it goes along with a new chapter, a new mark on it, but in a good way. So that's one use. Another use that actually is quite good with our Christmas bauble is that you can keep the pieces of scrap thread and use them to stuff the bauble at the end. So if you didn't want to use toy stuffing, if you wanted to try and reduce the waste that you were creating with the project, when you cut away the pattern to make the bauble shape, you can use the excess fabric that you needed to embroider and excess threads to stuff the bauble itself with. And then there's hardly any waste left at the end, which, you know, we all got to try and reduce our waste a little bit harder, I personally think. And if there's easy and lovely ways to do it, that's all part of the project, then, you know, more's the better in my opinion. We also had somebody called Chain-Stitcher asks, oh, that's an apt name. How long does it take to develop a class? So our classes really vary, and it just depends how much time and work has to go into developing the class itself. So if it's something like a beginner's class, obviously because the beginner's techniques are reasonably simple, you know, for beginners, then they tend to be that little bit quicker to put together, probably overall taking a couple of months from sort of conception to being ready to present to you guys. But some of our more complicated classes, so it does tend to be like the intermediate classes, the classes where they've got multiple parts, things like intermediate, timbre, intermediate, goldwork, creative goldwork, jungle, all of those classes are probably over a year that we are sort of thinking about them, working on them, trying out techniques, then working towards a design with those techniques in mind. Usually going through several rounds of what the design would look like, refining it, and then doing a sample and testing what works and what doesn't, after doing the sourcing of the materials that we would need for that. Usually there's some changes partway through there, things that we think can be improved upon, and then actually, say, filming a class or writing out the instructions for it and then presenting it to you guys. So it is quite a long process, but it is good fun too. We enjoy putting them together, and it would seem like you guys enjoy doing them. So long as both parties are having fun, I think we'll just continue. But as I say, if you know what you would like to see from us that we haven't yet provided you, let me know. I'll see what I can do about it, just between you and me. So, a couple more comments. So, Baboshi Atelier, I hope I'm saying that right. I'm really sorry if I'm not. Perhaps pop it phonetically for me in the comments if I'm saying it wrong. Asks, are you going to cut the beige fabric? Did you embroider the blue star too? So the blue star comes pre-embroidered for you with the Snowflake Christmas decoration kit. That comes ready to go. Like the back, it's pre-embroidered, and then you just work in on top of it. And when we finish, I'm going to cut away the beige fabric, which is just a calico that I'm working on today, but it's a really nice firm one. You can hear that it makes a very satisfying little thrum when you hit it softly. And because all the embroidery is inside of the outside edge of the patch, the backing fabric that will be left with the embroidery will be smaller than the finished piece, and we could just hide all of that in behind the back of our embroidery, because this is sticky. So we'll just peel this off and stick it on the back of the snowflake we've embroidered and finish it beautifully in one clean sweep. So I've just got one more, is it a leg of a snowflake? Let's call it a leg or a frond. I was calling it a frond before, wasn't I? I don't know if frond is actually the right word. I think you know what I mean. One more to go. And the centre. And then we can put it all together. On YouTube, Barbara Calibri says, so beautiful, love the gold work on dark blue. Thank you very much. She also says, do classic and classy, thanks. And you're based in Austin, Texas. Lovely to have you joining us from somewhere so far afield. It's great to hear from you. Thank you for commenting. And the appreciation is also much appreciated. Okie doke. Come on, little one. That's it. Baboshi Atelier asks, is it cotton? I think this is in reference to the base fabric. So yes, I'm working on a calico today, but in your kit you do get your base fabric, which will be a black polycotton, I believe, so that you can work into and cut away as you need to. Because all of these little stitches that we use to tack it into place around the edge, we're going to cut those away too. We will no longer need them, and they can just go into our recycled thread jar to use in a future project. Lovely to see how many of you are still joining us. It's much appreciated. I hope you're having a good day so far. I certainly am. This is such a treat. I haven't had much chance to sit and just stitch something for myself in a little while. I've been quite busy with other prep things for you guys with the school. So this is a wonderful opportunity for me to just sort of sit quite quietly and stitch something. So I think that's what we're really all here for, isn't it? I mean, I say quietly, obviously I have been talking non-stop for the best part of an hour. But at least I have you guys to chat to. Not so quiet for my poor puppy who's just sort of listening to me natter away. He probably thinks that I've lost part of my sanity. Never mind. He'll never know. So just a few more pearls needed. And we need another long one. Okay, let's go with that. I'm excited to pop the back on. As I say, one of my wonderful colleagues actually developed this design, so it is my first time of trying out the patch today. Though, full disclosure, I have obviously done some chipping before. She says as she gets a knot in her thread. Not very professional. Just work that out if we can. Just have to sort of get inside the knot to loosen it ever so slightly and see if you can get it to give. Nope. Okay. just pull that loose. Okay, it's out. So I have a couple more comments here. So we've got Lyndon275 asks, will we be able to watch this again, please? Yes, so I will be resharing the video once the stream has ended, so that you can still access this if you wish. And it will, of course, also go onto our YouTube channel as a stitch along. That might take a week or so to get that ready, but it will be on there so you can kind of search for it really easily. If you don't already know, we also have a YouTube channel, which we share things like the stitch-alongs on, so that you've got them for reference. There's also a huge reference library on there of what we call pro tips, so just little things that make stitching easier or will bring your stitching up a level. So that can be things like tacking onto a base fabric, or window mounting is probably a step further forward from this, where you have a hole in the underneath fabric and you work within the hole so that you don't actually have a backing fabric for your embroidery, but you're able to work on a small piece with good tension, or you're able to access somewhere where it's got a difficult access point, if that makes sense. That often applies to clothing, things like sleeve cuffs. If you wanted to monogram some sleeves, then you might need to frame it up with window mounting. There's loads of tips on there about threading up the needle, 4 different ways. We have a video about 4 different ways to thread up the needle, depending on what suits you best and what you like. Also how to make quick knots, which if you're starting to think about stitching a little bit more regularly, then learning to be able to do a quick knot will really save you quite a lot of time overall. Lots of good things on there. We also share sneak peeks of things that go on in the embroidery studio, as we do work from an embroidery studio based in London, as our name suggests. Lots of good fun things on there. What's coming up in our classes and what the classes are about. All of the tasters are on there, so you can get a flavour for what you might get in one of our classes when you choose to purchase one. And equally, we have quite a few free classes that you can access all through our YouTube channel. So do have a look if you find yourself stuck for something to do of an afternoon. Our very first video that launched our YouTube channel is still up there, and is still a free class, which is the Valentino Roses class. That was, goodness, right at the start of all the lockdowns here in the UK. We released that one, and we haven't looked back since. So, Caddy Williams asks, oh, sorry, I need a piece of pearl. Do you have any ideas for other embroidery-related Christmas gifts? Well, now you're asking. Yes, of course. So, there's lots of little pieces that I think are really useful on our website, of tools that someone who's interested in embroidery may not have, but might just need and not realise it. Now, something that I think is absolutely key as one of those sorts of things is one of these. This is a stiletto, and it's a laying tool. And if you haven't used one, you probably think, well, why do you need a laying tool? And why has it got a pointy end and then a flattened end, and it's angled at the bottom? But this, I generally don't stitch without it. It's one of these pieces that anyone who's really interested in embroidery will definitely have some sort of laying tool. The Malure is my personal preference because it's so tapered up one end, so it's great for laying down threads when you're doing monogramming. But also it's got the flattened end, which is lovely for when you're doing things like gold work. So you can just sort of use it to angle and reshape pieces of your pearl. You can use it to, if you get any tension that you're not happy with, just re-lift it back off the surface and place it back down again. The traditional laying tool for gold work would be a different one called a malure. That's another option. I think they're both really great as a stocking filler because they're such a small little item, but also they're just quite a beautiful thing. There's a really nice weight to this. It just feels nice in your hand. I would also say, equipment-wise, you can't have too many pairs of scissors. As I say, I would absolutely suggest that you have 2 pairs of scissors on the go, even for a project as small and as simple as this one, just to save both of the pairs of scissors by using them just for one intended purpose. And there are a fair few different choices of scissors on our website. There's the precision cut scissors, which are great for applique. They've got like a flat bill on one side. They look rather interesting. There's also the luxury hen scissors. They come with a little fancy tassel on the end. They're really, really sweet. I don't have mine to hand here of those, but any of those sorts of things, I think you can't really go too far wrong when buying for somebody else who's interested in stitching and embroidery. Okay, I'm just going to put these last few pieces of pearl in. And then we'll be ready to pop the back on. Okie doke. See, for example, that one didn't lay down very well there, so I would just come in with my stiletto, lift it up and lay it back down, and it sits much, much better. Okay. Almost there. I'm just aware that I'm running a little short on time. Clearly too much talking. So let's just finish off this thread. Couple of holding stitches. I'm just working into the areas that are already gold. That will hide my stitching. Pull it nice and tight, get the scissors right in there. Okay, let's clear this off and we can take out the tacking stitches. So we just release that there. It's another good use of your laying tool is just to come in, help to remove tacking stitches, because you can angle the nib very tightly. It allows you to kind of really get in there without damaging your embroidery. And this way. And there we go. Okay, there we go, that's all loose. So now we can come in with the scissors. Just looking to make a little hole. Then being careful not to cut any of my stitches. I'm just looking to cut the base fabric. So I'm going to have to put my hand in front of the camera for a second. Apologies. There we go. It just starts to release. See, I would suggest if you were doing this at home that you take it out of the embroidery frame and cut it at your leisure. Let's come around this side. Just a few more snips. Gonna come nice and close at the top here so that the hole for the hanging ribbon stays nice and clean. Okay, so then we have our free shape. If we take the back piece, you can just peel off I need to get right in there. So just peel off the backing. Let's place that nice and smooth. One on top of the other. And squeeze round all those edges. And I say squeeze around the edges so that we don't crush our gold work. And then just need the ribbon. Let's try and fold that in half. And there you go. Is the snowflake done? Even with all of my chatting away in under an hour. So it's a really easy little kit to get started with. Now it's fully double-sided, beautifully finished. Something you can really be proud of. And then just pop it straight onto your tree. No hesitation. I think it's just so sweet. Yeah, that's all from me for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm glad I got to the end. Got a little touch and go there at the end, did you see? That's all from me. I've really said all I think I can say. So yeah, if you want to get in touch with us, we'll be checking all of the socials. Please do let us know whatever you think. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing what you stitch this Christmas. So it's bye for now.